Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at B2B World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at a very important story, unfortunately, that has been developing for many months, and the people have been suffering for many months as well. Of course, we're talking about the genocide that is underway in Gaza since October last year, and because of that, more than 35,000 Palestinians have lost their lives, including women and children. And what is, of course, most horrific is that humanitarian aid continues to be blocked, and of course, there is also a lot of target on the hospitals and refugee camps within these areas that have resulted in more pain and suffering and the loss of more lives in the Gaza Strip. This alone is, of course, enough for action to be taken. However, unfortunately, that isn't the case at the moment, where many still view this incorrectly as war, and how many of the countries in the world, including the most powerful ones, including the US, continue to support Israel in this genocide against the Palestinian people. We're now going to be taking a look also in focus as to what sort of aspects are important in such a situation, including, of course, the way that the truth must reach to the international community. And for that, of course, the journalist community within the Gaza Strip are of utmost importance. And even though more than 100 journalists and journalistic workers have lost their lives due to this genocide, on the World Press Freedom Day, we continue to celebrate the heroes, both who are still alive and who are working, and those who have lost their lives, who have brought forward this very important aspect in front of the international community, and because of whose efforts the world has taken notice of the suffering of the Palestinian people after decades. And now we see that there is a lot of international protest that is continuing all over the world, including most notably these days at university campuses across the United States, resulting in, of course, a lot of debate that has sparked a lot of controversy regarding the popularity of Joe Biden and his future political prospects, and then also with regards to the pro-democratic protest and movement that is always supported by the US administration, but unfortunately in action seems to be otherwise. And the student community in the United States and in other parts of the world have also condemned the way in which the student in campus at these universities have been attacked by the police forces, and how this freedom of speech is not allowed, while, of course, the US Biden administration continues to support Israel in this genocide. So we're going to be taking a look at all of this in focus in our show today, and understand where it is that the situation is today and what needs to be done and where the momentum is going. For this and more, as always, in the studios, I've been joined by senior analyst Farrukh and Raja Faisal, and we've also been joined online by former ambassador Mr. G.R. Baluch. Thank you very much, Baluch, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And I'll start with you with reference to what has been going on. Of course, for quite some time, Pakistan has always made its stance very clear on the international community, but of course it seems that many other countries are also realizing what is happening and what is going on within the Gaza Strip, and how this genocide is causing so much pain and suffering, and that this is unacceptable. But of course, much remains to be seen in terms of the suffering ending, in terms of the international community actually taking action, and for the important and more powerful countries to be also taking a stance in favor of the Palestinians. Where do you think the international community stands as of today, after many months since October, and after many, many people that have lost their lives?
Sana, thank you. And you gave a very good intro, and I think you touched upon several aspects of this tragedy, historical tragedy, that we see and witness live on TV. In fact, this would be among the first such an event in the history, in the human history, where genocide is being carried out by a country with the help of certain great powers, right in front of live cameras. And the world seems to be thinking, at least to that extent, that they can do nothing to the perpetrator and to the Israeli forces, to the tormentor of the Palestinians. One. Second, my reflection when you were giving into the intro was more historical, that how history changes, and you come out with strange developments that you're baffled what is happening. That these Jews, if at all the real Jews were now in Israel, were supposed to be the victims of genocide uh, by the Nazis. And then perhaps the Western powers, out of their own guilt, supported the establishment of Israel. Today is the same Israel, supported by the same Western powers, carrying out genocide of Palestinians. And it is not only genocide. There is one more aspect which has just come up, which has not been debated, and I think we must highlight. And that is a term which is being used as the domicide. That is, not only that force is killing the Palestinians, but it is killing the entire civilization. That is, making that place uninhabitable for the human life, thereby destroying all the elements which are required for any people to live. That is, electricity, the water, the hospitals, the schools. So essentially, the world probably have to address this along with the genocide that Israel is actually systematically carrying out. I mean, it's strange to hear the reports of settlers killing hundreds of Palestinians. Hundreds. Of course, nominally some of the settlers have been sanctioned, but they are under the protection of the Israeli army. So it is more than it's a daylight murder of people, murder of civilization. The world seems to be standing still. We do not see any tangible really move towards that. The other most important aspect or the negative point is that not only that Israel has been able to is able to kill so many journalists who are working they're covering the genocide, but it has been able to influence even the so-called the free world, and we see in the West, in America and Britain, the freedom is being restricted. The space for free expression of opinion is being restricted. The worst that we saw was that 4 presidents of prominent universities were kicked out just because they allowed free expression of opinion on what Israel was doing in Gaza. What else do you want? And now, as the campuses, they rise up, that because they are the nurseries, supposed to be the nurseries of free expression, and they stand for the righteous cause. The moment they stood up, what has happened? They've been dealt with, first of all, attacked by the Zionists, so that they create those peaceful encampments in the universities and give a cause to the local police to go and attack them and dismantle those peaceful camps, which were essentially an expression of rejection of Israel's genocidal and domicidal murder of Palestinians. I think the most important thing that I want to highlight, that the world at large must reject it. Not only reject it, but prevent it. To the contrary, what is happening, unfortunately, is that Israel is being assisted, being helped. $28 billion of US taxpayers' money will go to Israel to buy bombs, to kill these helpless 1.5 million, 2.5 million Palestinians. Where is the conscience of the Western world gone? What has happened? I think we must raise our voice. We continue to raise our voice that this is a genocide. This is a now domicide. So I think it must stop. Stop now. Yes, Sana.
Right, absolutely, and this is extremely important. But Faisal, I'll take your perspective on this as well. If you think fundamentally where we stand today, there is a change in the way different countries are now looking at Palestine, because of course this is not something that the timeline of which starts from October. This is something that's been going on for decades. But do we now today stand at a moment where there is a possibility for an actual tangible change for the Palestinians, for somehow, after all of this suffering, some hope, some good to actually come out of it for the people of Palestine?
Sana, it's a very good question, and when I see things taking place and shaping up in a country like America right now, I am, hopeless seeing all of that. Reason being, the students that are considered as, few of the best students of the world, I must say, because they are studying in the best universities of the world, I must say. And while they are exercising their right against their own government, because their government is right now taking a side of the genocidal Zionist regime, and they are speaking against it, and their government is not letting them doing so. And freedom of expression, freedom press, it all gone now. I mean, in a country like America, I'm talking about. And if we, take the example of steps are being taken by rest of the world. Of course, rest of the world is quiet because they know that the governments I'm talking about, the governments are quiet. Reason being, they know that America is standing, American government is standing with the Zionist state of Israel. And here, I think the only thing I can see is the new world order which we are being experiencing, and only because of one reason, and that is the Zionism. Everyone is trying to safeguard Zionism. And what is Zionism? Zionism is not Judaism. I mean, if we talk about the Jewish themselves, American Jewry, I mean the Orthodox American Jewry, the Orthodox British Jewry, all of them, they have came out protesting against the Israeli Zionist regime. They believe that whatever is going on in Gaza right now, I mean, they even stand with Muslims, stand with Christians, and stand with humanity. It's the Zionism which is the problem, not any religion, not any Judaism or Christianity or Islam. It's just the Zionism. What is Zionism? End of the 19th century, Theodor Herzl, a journalist based in Vienna, he comes up with this idea that, oh, we are going to have this political struggle, and his political struggle becomes Zionism, and he actually strives to seek a land of himself to declare their own country. Initially, they've been looking for somewhere in Latin America, and then in Europe as well. And then, of course, when in Europe, they saw organizations like Nazis. When they came into power, they actually did whatever they did in the previous century, the kind of Holocaust they went through. I mean, our heart goes out to Jews for that purpose. But when it comes to Zionism, I mean, what kind of precedent they are setting? One wrong can never erase the other wrong, and the wrong they are committing right now, it's like they went through Holocaust and now they are committing another Holocaust to justify their own Holocaust.
They're not the same people, by the way.
Yeah.
And majority of them, of course, they are Ashkenazi Jews. I mean, Orthodox Jews, they don't consider Ashkenazi Jews as the real Jews. I mean, if we talk about the Jewry itself, and that's why Orthodox Jews are against this ideology, Zionism, and whatever is going on, it's being supported by.
So how much is this about these belief systems anyway?
It is everything to do with it. Everything to do with it. Reason being, when they talk about, when they talk about Gaza, I mean, if we take the example of IDF, the IDF commanders, when they're talking to their own soldiers, they give these kind of sermons to their soldiers that the land which you are going to go and attack, it was promised to you, and you would be rewarded by their God. You would be rewarded if you kill even kids, if you kill even elderly, even women, whoever you kill, you will be rewarded for that. I mean, this kind of mentality, it's the sickening kind of mentality which is at play in today's Israel, and of course against Gaza they are doing it. The only problem here is, Sana, the only problem here is that the countries like US, the governments like US, the Democrats we are talking about, I mean, Democrats, the government of Democrats throughout the world, it's known for, standing for the rights of the humanity, the human rights, then freedom of press, freedom of expression. They stand for that. And here we are seeing what? Their own students, what kind of lessons they are giving to their own students. I mean, a couple of days ago, I've been watching the footages, and I've been closely watching the peaceful protesters inside the university. They were just encamped there and doing nothing. And then a group of hooligans carrying Israeli flags, and of course they call themselves as Jewish American students.
Right.
They come there, and with the help of the police does nothing, and they are throwing firecrackers on them. They are actually being aggressors, and they are being the Palestinian protesters, they are being aggressed upon, and the kind of force which is being used by the police there, I mean, it is unprecedented. What kind of
Let's actually
message
talk
they are
a little
giving to
bit
the
more
world?
about that. And Farrukh, I want your perspective also in terms of what Faisal had earlier said and what this conflict really is about.
Yeah.
And then secondly, in terms of what is going on in the US and how fundamentally different it is, or as Faisal is saying, how unprecedented it is, because when we take a look at, of course, the kind of principles that the US claims to stand by, it seems that a lot of what is going on is perhaps going against that, and also impacting the political prospects of the Biden administration, and it is causing a lot of voters to sort of sway away from him. Is this something so important for the US foreign policy that they can afford to do that?
All right. Thank you very much, Sana. I just wanted to actually, earlier when Faisal was talking about Israel being built somewhere else, I just wanted to point out that the country that perhaps should be paying a lot of money to the world, because Israel was not established on that land, it was Uganda. And they dodged the bullet, boy. A big one, by the way. But regarding, while Faisal was actually trying to separate anti-Semitism from, anti-Zionism, he also unfortunately ended up actually conflating the two. Okay. And that is the biggest problem. The people, the survivors of Holocaust, are mostly in the US. Some of them might have their initial children or people who were very young at that time. They might have, their children might have actually immigrated to Israel, because Israel offers twin nationality. I mean, wherever you are, if you are Jewish, you have Israel's nationality also. But despite that, the fact is that both are very different, parallels or different kind of movements or realities. Anti-Semitism was, as was pointed out by Faisal and Ambassador Saab, also one of the most embarrassing parts, saddest parts of human history. No doubt about that. 6 million people killed or totally destroyed, kept like animals. And that doesn't mean that independent of that, the Zionist movement was not moving. Actually, Netanyahu actually tried to cut a lot of slack to Hitler a few years ago, when he actually claimed that it was basically the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. Faisal agrees with me, must be sitting over there at that time. But, the Grand Mufti was the one who advised Hitler to do it. But that was contradicted immediately by the well-established historians that it was all a pack of lies. Now, Netanyahu has done exactly what the other day I was telling you about Lord of the Rings and, two towers, and that king who has an advisor called Wormtongue, who actually poisons him and actually keeps him weak so that he can have sway on him, right? And the king keeps on aging very quickly. And once he stops that meat, all of a sudden he becomes younger. With America, since the idea of clash of civilizations was actually floated, since then, Israel and India are the two countries whose people have been convincing America that your future is doomed and you are not going to be a power. And after that, they have actually conflated, particularly Netanyahu's own supporters in America. By the way, they are not Jewish. They are essentially evangelist Christians, because in order to bring about the second coming of Jesus Christ, they have to first fatten up Israel, because then Jesus Christ actually has to return and destroy Israel. So at this moment, until he comes back, this is a marriage of convenience. Right. So using that kind of coterie of people, Netanyahu has actually built both a structure to support anti-Semitism in America, so that people are driven out of America and into the arms of Israel. At the same time, he has also, conflated anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism or anti-Israel. Netanyahu himself is a proven card-carrying racist. If you don't believe my word, just ask the Somali refugees who went there and they were treated like refuse. Right. Similarly, when it comes to various others, darker skinned Jewish people, he does not actually give them that kind of acceptance. Sorry?
Ethiopians.
Ethiopian refugees earlier. But regarding overall situation at this time, this is clear that it is not about any ideology at all. Ideology serves as the purpose, as the vehicle to actually convince people and to indoctrinate, but the fact is it is all about property. For example, Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, actually went to Gaza, and he actually brought up that it will make a beautiful ocean front.
Right.
So that is essentially about property, and this is what you are seeing right now. This genocide that is going on, this ethnic cleansing that is going on is systematic. But regarding President Biden, I think his problem is that his government is already ambushed by Trumpism, and it is ambushed by all the so-called anti-Zionists who are essentially anti-Semites, right? So those people keep on pushing, and he does not have that kind of capacity in an election year to actually carry forward and to actually fight with Netanyahu. And of course, Israel is thought to be some kind of their own supported base, so they are not going to do it.
Right.
Unfortunately, with that kind of situation, my humble submission is that we have to wait till the time system somehow, or perhaps nature gets Netanyahu.
Right. Ambassador Saab, with reference to, of course, the U.S. domestic politics, I'll pose a similar question to you in terms of this being a very important year as well. And then, of course, with the way that the situation is impacting the current dynamics, how do you see the foreign policy of the U.S. in terms of its allies, in terms of what is going on within the country as well? Do you think that the kind of ruckus that we're now seeing in terms of the university students can actually escalate in something bigger?
Historically, the US normal voter, it's very interesting to see, except for the top, say 10%, 20% intellectuals, universities, school graduates, and other educated class, the majority of the American voter is more concerned about its domestic politics than the international politics. In fact, several studies have been carried out, and I'm witness to itself because I've been twice there, that a common American is pretty naive in terms of what is happening beyond his country. So I don't think that this yes, it is, he is kind of trying to cozy up to the Israeli lobby, which is very well informed. They want to protect their interests, but a common voter obviously would not be that much impacted. In fact, there was a survey which might be not very neutral, but they say it was only about 19 to 20% people said yes, that they are concerned about the US policy on on Israel or on the situation in Gaza.
Right,
So
but
generally
Ambassador
it
Saab,
does not.
don't you think the situation is changing now in the US or in other parts of the country also, perhaps in the UK also, where political decisions by voters are factoring in how the countries are either supporting or speaking against this genocide?
Well, not at large. Again, I said it is a very that informed segment of the society of these countries. UK is different, but US by and large is made up of so many diverse immigrants. Of course, those coming from Asia, coming from Middle East, and of course the well-informed segment of the US society. In fact, it was very encouraging to see that some Jewish, students and activists were leading these protests. So obviously, these centers of learning, which essentially are not only for the American centers of learning, but they have been the centers of learning of all the liberal values that we see in the world are being at least advocated. So therefore, I think it was natural that you will have some kind of opinion in Brown University, in Columbia, in New York. And if they are muzzled, my God, what will happen with the free speech? What will happen with the liberal ideas, democratic ideas, or even the basic human rights? So I think that should not be a surprise to us. I think the most important that which we would like to share with our audience from our perspective is that it is a larger question, but also just smaller question. That is a paradox. So what Netanyahu and his cohorts have done, the Zionist cabinet, that they have linked the prolongation of this genocide with their political survival. And that is the point that has to be brought home to all the opinion makers in the US, in the West, and rest of the world. That come on, it's not about the survival of the Jews. It is not the Jews who have an existential threat at the hands of 2.5 million helpless, homeless, and now foodless Palestinians. It is about very narrow, very selfish agenda of Netanyahu and his Zionist cabinets, which feel threatened that if this war comes to end, their political career will come to end. So I think that is the microscopic incision that our dissection of this issue. The bigger one, of course, has other aspects that the world had to stand, world had to condemn, world had to take actions against Israel. It's so disappointing to see that there was some activists they brought in boycott Israel, and that has been criminalized just because the world Zionist organizations are so active, so proactive, and they are so influential, and they know the way the governments work, the way the other system works in the West. They are able to manipulate. So I think the world has to think about it. I think the other only ray of hope is that hopefully this genocide will come to an end. The Americans would start to realize that how much harmful Israel's support has been for their own society, how it is shrinking its own space for free speech, how bad name is coming to America as a moral leader of the world, as a political leader of the world. So I think there are a lot of repercussions for the American system, American image, and perception about America as a democratic country, or a country which stands for the human values and humanitarian values. Yes, Sarah.
Right, and Ambassador Saab, a very important factor of this genocide that is much talked about is the fact that this is perhaps the first one in history where this genocide is being broadcast live, and that of course goes to the efforts of the journalists and the journalistic workers who've been going ahead, risking their own lives in making sure that the world sees and understands what's going on. And I think a lot of that also sparked understanding and the kind of protests that we've now seen in the international community, which perhaps then in turn have impacted decisions. How much do you think is the power of the people then in this regard? People beginning from the journalists, people on ground, doctors, heroes that have helped save people's lives, and then to the kind of protests that are happening, even the students in in as far as the United States who are raising their concerns are adding to the impetus towards the world no longer being able to ignore the plight of the Palestinians. How important do you think these people have been in where we are today?
Yeah, I think sometimes tragedies are big, I would say, teachers of the human civilization. Why we see that how a certain number of people in the 21st century would be practicing certain primordial practices of domicide, as I said. It used to happen in the olden times when certain group of humans, they would attack the other, they will burn everything, they'll poison the water resources, they'll destroy and burn their homes. But to be doing that in 21st century is unbelievable. This is one lowest ebb of it as we look at it. But at the same time, you see that how brave journalists who are, in my view, the doctors, who are the humanitarian workers, who are the real heroes of this unfortunate tragic event that is happening in this part of the history of the human history. Indeed, they are writing new chapters of courage, new chapters of professionalism, new chapters of how to even give your life for showing the fact and truth to the world. So I think entirely a new, in my view, chapter of brave journalism, brave medical practice, brave humanitarian services is being written now. That should be a model. Hopefully, we will not see it again. The world had already thought that after what happened in Germany, that the human civilization would not at all condescend this kind of a behavior by any country. But what to do? That those very victims apparently are doing exactly to the other communities, and they themselves are the perpetrators. So I think the world has to come up and to rethink what are the tools that is to be done, and especially I would say the Western countries, the US has to rethink that how its system is being manipulated in terms of resources, tax money, in terms of expression of opinion. And I think we will probably have to debate that how can we now redefine anti-Semitism? It has been misused. It has been used as a tool to protect the cruelty of Israel. It has been misused to cover the aggression of Israeli state and the human rights violations by the Zionists in Palestine and depriving of Palestinians of their rights. So I think the intellectuals, academia, and the states have to redefine what constitutes anti-Semitism. Criticizing Israel is not at all anti-Semitism, or condemning the inhumane behavior of Israel, what is happening now, or it has happened in the past, is not at all, by any stretch of definition or imagination, is or can be said as a anti-Semitic behavior. So I think we have to redefine anti-Semitism and confine it to the definition of its original, the way it was thought to have it, but not what is being done now and has been overstretched. It has been now kind of, it covers everything that anybody says against Israel. So I think there has to be an intellectual debate within these democracies, within so-called liberal societies, and they'll have to answer these questions for the good of their own societies, because it is distorting their own youth. It is creating their own social, political, and intellectual chasms within their own society. So I think it is the peace and tranquility of their own society is at stake. Yes, Sana.
Right. Yes, do you have a
With
question?
your permission,
Yes.
not the question. I just wanted to further highlight whatever Ambassador Baluch is, highlighting, and I think he has put brilliantly. Just wanted to add something into it. Yesterday, I was going through one of the, of course, brawls between Piers Morgan and Mehdi Hasan, in which Piers Morgan was of the view that word intifada is actually anti-Semitism, and it is being used by the American students in the American universities, and this shouldn't be used. And in reply to that, of course, Mehdi Hasan highlighted that intifada is an Arabic word which means standing up or gathering the power of the whole nation and standing up for your rights. This is what it means. And he further said the same word is actually was used by the BBC, by CNN, while all of the North African states, while they were going through the Arab Spring, they were proudly using that it is intifada of Algeria, intifada of Egypt, intifada of rest of the countries. And he further said that the same word is actually used at Auschwitz camp as well, where they have written a story in all of the languages of the world, including Arabic, of the people, how they actually stood up for their rights, and then Nazis, they took them to these camps, and the Holocaust took place. And there, the word is used as intifada, intifada of the Jews. So intifada word is, as long as it is being used elsewhere, it's all good. It's not considered as anti-Semitism. But as soon as it is being used in context of Gaza, in context of Palestine, it becomes anti-Semitism. So this is the understanding, at a wider level. An anchor like Piers Morgan, who's being followed by throughout the world, everyone,
Right.
He hasn't got the concept clear.
But Faisal, is it a matter of understanding? Is it really as complicated as people have made it, or is this just somebody just creating
Sana,
an issue out of it?
Sana, end of the day, only one liner I would say is that it is so easy to understand. It has no complications at all. But as long as something is being told to do by the deep pockets, they will keep on doing it. That's what it is.
All right. Ambassador Saab, last question to you. Where do you see this genocide moving forward? When will we be seeing its end? It's been quite a while.
I think you should rephrase the question. I'm sorry, even my heart comes out when you say, how do you see genocide forward? No, you say, when shall it end? How should it end? That is the question we should be asking ourselves. So I would say it must end now when we finish talking, even when I'm finishing talking. How it can be finished? I think there are several prescriptions that has been given. First of all, I think we have to be successful on one front, which is possible. That is the battle of narratives, as was being pointed out. So I think the battle of narratives is at least something which possibly can be won by arguments on media, on academia, on campuses. And I think we must support these brave students who are studying in these universities in the US, or in UK, or now in France. Likewise, we must now again reactivate. I think after the first initial those sessions of the OIC and Arab League and JCC, everybody is forgotten, and we see business as usual. I think Muslim world has to reawaken again themselves again, because I see because he said it. He's telling the world that I'll do what I'll do. That is, he says, whether an agreement or not agreement, Rafah I will go. And if he goes to Rafah, I sadly want to not even think about it, but believe me, it could be a massacre of the order that one has never seen it in these times. So I think the world has to wake up. The world powers have to wake up. The Muslim world has to wake up. The Arab world has to wake up. and really, really make it impossible for Israel to carry out what it intends to or what it is saying that it will do it. Let's hope that this agony of Palestinians, this agony of the Muslim world, this agony of the human conscience comes to an end as early as possible.
Right. Thank you very much, Ambassador J.R. Baluch, for joining us and being a part of this discussion. Farrukh, the ambassador, has said that we must make it impossible for Israel. But it seemed that should have been an easy task where genocide is completely unacceptable. And of course, we've seen many months go by, but nothing has happened so far. How will that be something that will be possible? And if in the end, if you could also comment on the World Press Freedom Day, we're part of that community. And I just want to honor the journalists from Gaza.
Right. Yeah. This is an impossible task because I have to actually cover so much ground.
You have 4 minutes.
But okay, I wish it was one, so I would have covered everything under the sun. But I just wanted to point out regarding what is happening in the US, what is happening, what Israel is doing, and how difficult it is for the pro-Palestinian people in the US or the West. Remember that we have endured 22 years of Islamophobia, which was institutionalized at that time. Remember, Israel never attacked one of the Western countries, but Muslims were accused of attacking many places. So it created an opportunity for Netanyahu, who has been around for that long, and Indians and of course many others, to actually keep piling on. So any person who is actually standing up for Palestinians, salute them, especially if they are Jewish, especially if they are seculars, especially if they are Christians. Because it takes a lot of courage to stand against the tide of popular culture, right? Hollywood has been actually indoctrinating people, so much has been going on. Regarding where it is headed, honestly, I think that Netanyahu knows that the moment he stops with all this, he is gone. And I think that moment is coming sooner than you would think. Regarding Press Freedom Day, I think that it is a nice little ritual that we observe every year. And it is, let us actually call it a fancy dress party, because the people, especially reporters in Gaza, in India, some parts of Pakistan have suffered. In the US also. So the frank truth is, at this moment, press and freedom are the two words that are not going together. They are not in tandem, because somehow, because of technology, because of social media, press has already been bulldozed. Whosoever has the courage to report, because there has been an institutional decline. And that's why we keep on seeing people like Netanyahu or whatever happened in Kashmir or elsewhere. The people actually get away with murder because of one thing, that there has been an institutional decline all over the world. And that's why democracy is constantly under threat. If Modi is returned, and which I think this seems, listen to Faisal Saab, Raja Faisal convinces me it is certain. So if that happens, and if Netanyahu survives, I think not only democracy, but civilization is gone. But hey, it is a broken world. I did not create it. I'm not supposed to reform it. I'm just living in it, and I will endure as long as the world endures.
Right, and you were able to complete that with time to spare. Thank you, Farrukh, and thank you, Faisal, for joining us in the debate. That's all that we have from the show. We'll now see you tomorrow.